The antiseptic ash burns as the chirurgeon's stylus traces the imperial aquila across Trooper Vex's forehead. Each stroke deliberate, each line a signature on an inventory ledger. The guardsman lies strapped to the gurney, not for surgery, but for classification processing. Chirurgeon Maltheus intones the litany of allocation. By blood expended, by labor remaining, by decree allotted, service assigned, suffering recorded. The ash mixture, blessed oils and ground bone meal from previous patients, seeps into flesh like a brand of ownership. This is Hive Gloriana Septimus, 47 days after Arbites purged the chaos cult that turned Hab blocks into crematoria. Recovery here does not mean healing. It means counting. It means determining which broken bodies can be made productive again, and which will become inputs for other Imperial machines. The Medici complex operates as a vast sorting facility, transforming human suffering into resource allocation statistics. The wards stretch beyond sight, a cathedral of bureaucratic precision. Color-coded tags flutter from each bed like prayer flags, marking different fates. Red tags cluster around shock beds, immediate intervention for officers and irreplaceable specialists. Yellow indicates delayed treatment for the valuable, but not urgent. Green patients, the manufactorum workers and minor clerks, receive basic care sufficient to return them to labor quotas within acceptable time frames. Then there are the blue tags. Patients whisper about blue classifications between shift changes when surveillance servo skulls pause their eternal recording. Blue-tagged individuals disappear beyond the sealed blast doors of Ward Omega, marked with the administratum's skull and quill. They never return. Their beds are sanitized, blessed, and prepared for new occupants. A Departamento Monitorum scribe approaches with a data slate displaying Vex's service record, productivity metrics, and genetic purity index. These numbers feed the recovery efficiency quotient, the sacred algorithm determining resource allocation across the Hive's medical infrastructure. On nearby desks, sealed orders stamped Protocol Redemption, pending authorization, lie partially concealed beneath routine requisitions. The Munitorum calls this process mercy arithmetic, treatment resources invested versus productive hours restored. Efficiency calculations flow through to cogitator banks, while tech priests monitor output ratios. A patient's past productivity, reliquary attendance, genealogic purity, and unit discipline all contribute to the equation. Efficiency up, tithe stable, murmurs a clerk. The inverse remains unspoken, but understood. Vex's eyes flutter open as anesthetic fades. The aquila throbs with each heartbeat, a permanent reminder of his status as imperial property. His gaze searches the chirurgeon's face for hints of his classification, finding only clinical detachment. "Emperor," he whispers through cracked lips, voice barely audible above the ward's mechanical hymns. "Let me be useful." Usefulness, not wellness, defines recovery in the 41st millennium. The chirurgeon makes notations and moves to the next patient. The classifications process continues, an endless liturgy, transforming wounds into calculations, hope into inventory management, and mercy into resource extraction. In the Imperium's care, purpose flows through utility. Recovery means return to service. Service, always, unto death. Morning bell, incense coil, data slate glow. Departamento Munitorum clerk Thane begins each shift with the litany of sacred accountancy, her fingers dancing across blessed cogitator keys as casualty reports transform into resource allocation matrices. The subsector Medical Division operates from a windowless chamber deep within the Hive's administrative core, where human suffering becomes mathematics and mathematics becomes imperial policy. Servitors unload blood-spattered crates of casualty slates from the Medici complex. Thane's task remains simple, devout, and terrible. Convert pain into numbers the Imperium can spend. The Survival Index governs this right, a composite algorithm weighing injury severity against pre-conflict productivity, ideological reliability, and genetic purity. Each wounded soul becomes a calculation in the Emperor's grand ledger. Trooper Vex's file appears first on her primary screen. Shrapnel wounds to torso, and limbs translate to 3.2 treatment units. His manufacturum rating, Class Gamma Riveter, 110% quota, adds 0.8 output potential. Perfect attendance at ecclesiarchy services modifies trust upward. Baseline genotype purity contributes another fraction. The cogitator calculates 847 throne gelt treatment cost, projected 4.3 years additional service, 73% probability of full recovery. Classification recommendation: Yellow. Delayed but viable investment. The numbers flow in endless streams across wall-mounted displays that pulse like electronic heartbeats. Today's efficiency rating hovers at 82.7%. The tithe acceleration protocol looms at 85%, a threshold triggering automatic increase of imperial tithes by 40% within 60 days. Achieving this benchmark transforms the Hive from burden to asset, but pressure creates dangerous incentives. Patients must be classified as recovered, whether their bodies agree or not. Cardinal Administratum Vos arrives for daily blessing, his servo skull trailing incense across databanks. "Suffering is the Emperor's currency," he intones, making the sign of the Aquila over spreadsheets dense with human misery. In his numbers, we find truth. In his calculations, we find purpose. The ecclesiarchy sanctifies these ledgers as holy work, declaring the balance's sacred accountancy. Waste becomes sin, precision, piety. Thane processes another batch, 17 manufacturum workers with chemical burns, productivity ratings below threshold, genetic markers indicating possible mutation susceptibility. The cogitator's recommendation flickers. Blue classification pending review. These cases require different mathematics, not treatment cost versus productivity, but disposal efficiency versus resource recovery. The moral framework operates with theological precision. Recovery represents return on investment, not restoration of health. The wounded exist to serve. Service requires measurement. Measurement demands optimization. Healing becomes subsidy in this schema. Patients become throughput in the greater war machine. Her fingers pause over authorization keys. The screen displays Ward Omega's daily intake capacity, organ viability assessments, servitor conversion quotas, numbers that transform people into components, consciousness into compliance. As shift concludes, Thane reviews the day's exceptions. A sealed docket blinks with administratum cipher. Among routine classifications, one notation haunts the recycled air, like a prayer half remembered, half feared. Blue classifications pending, redemption protocol authorization. The ledger never closes. The mathematics never sleep. Tomorrow brings new casualties, new calculations, new opportunities for sacred efficiency in the Emperor's name. The Medici complex transforms each morning into a cathedral of classification. Chirurgeon Prime Malthius moves through the intake bay with liturgical precision, his voice carrying the litany of sacred sorting above the wounded's moans. By wound we measure worth, by pain we judge purpose, by service we sanctify suffering. Medici secundus and hospitalers respond in chorus while affixing color-coded tags with ritualistic care. 3 gurneys define today's lesson in Imperial mercy. Tank Commander Thrace bears shrapnel wounds across his torso, fragments from his destroyed lemon rust still embedded in muscle tissue. His service record displays 43 confirmed kills, noble bloodline markers, and tactical certifications. The yellow tag finds his wrist without hesitation. Valuable but not critical. Treatment delayed but assured. Investment warranted. Manufactorum Worker DOS presents chemical burns covering his arms and chest, the signature of a coolant leak in Sector 7's Promethium refinery. His productivity ratings remain adequate, ideological compliance unblemished, medical requirements minimal. Standard dermal grafts will restore function within 72 hours. The green tag marks him for immediate processing. Return to labor with minimal resource expenditure. Scribe Valen trembles on the 3rd gurney, no visible wounds marring his pale flesh. Nervous exhaustion, states his field assessment. Translation: his mind fractured during the cult purge. His productivity metrics show declining output, missed devotional attendance, handwriting degraded by palsy. The blue tag hovers like a death sentence before settling against his wrist. Therapeutic heresy, Malthius mutters when a junior chirurgeon questions the classification. The concept governs all. Medical decisions. Questioning allocation protocols equals doubting the Emperor's will. Compassion without calculation becomes corruption. The sacred mathematics of triage brook no sentiment. Confessor Drex conducts purity interviews between the beds, seeking signs of spiritual contamination that justify blue classification. His questions probe for heretical thoughts, seditious doubts, ideological weakness. Do you accept the Emperor's judgment in your suffering? He asks each patient. Do you embrace pain as purification? Wrong answers modify classifications downward. Commander Thrace watches from his yellow-tagged bed as orderlies wheel a different blue-tagged patient toward the sealed blast doors marked Ward Omega. The patient's eyes meet his briefly. Recognition, terror, resignation. The massive portal hisses shut with pneumatic finality. No one returns from Ward Omega. The lock engages with mechanical certainty. Families cluster in the waiting area, clutching prayer beads and ration script offerings. They whisper desperate litanies to saints and servo-skulls alike. Green means hope. Yellow promises patience. Red demands immediate terror. But blue transforms loved ones into resource allocation problems requiring permanent solutions. A mother presses wooden saints against reinforced glass, mouthing prayers for any color except blue. For pain she can witness rather than mercy she cannot comprehend. The catechism continues its relentless sorting. The Emperor's mathematics bless some with healing, others with harvest. Ward Omega waits beyond sealed doors, its purpose whispered, but never spoken. Tomorrow, we follow where blue tags lead. The blast doors of Ward Omega seal with pneumatic finality, their reinforced ceramite inscribed with the Mechanicus cogskull. Beyond lies the Imperium's solution for the unrecoverable, a sterile cathedral where blue-tagged patients undergo final processing. Tech priest Dominus Xerath oversees operations from an elevated platform. his mechadendrites interfacing directly with cogitator banks that monitor efficiency quotients in real time. 3 processing tracks divide Ward Omega's cavernous interior, each sanctified by different rites of the Omnissiah. Sacred incense cannot mask the metallic tang of rendered flesh or the ozone discharge from neural extractors. Track Primaris handles organ reclamation for the genetically worthy. Blue-tagged patients with acceptable purity markers undergo systematic harvesting, while servo skulls record each component's destination. Hearts destined for Astartes apothecarians receive blessed stasis preservation. Kidneys marked for sector nobility are bathed in sacred oils. Neural tissue feeds cogitator banks across the subsector. Every extraction follows liturgical precision. Waste constitutes heresy against the machine god's efficiency protocols. Track Secundus processes servitor conversion for the partially useful. Scribe Valen from yesterday's intake lies, restrained beneath neural interface arrays, his nervous exhaustion making him unsuitable for organ harvest, but perfect for lobotomization. Cranial drills whine through bone, while tech adepts chant Bin Harik hymns. The procedure strips cognition while preserving motor function. Personality dissolves into mechanical compliance as frontal cortex tissue is carefully cauterized. Valen's eyes flutter, consciousness fragmenting under blessed steel. His whispered prayers become programming protocols. Memory erases, utility emerges. Track Tertius handles sacramental recycling for the remainder. Patients whose bodies offer neither viable organs nor servitor potential feed corpse starch processors. Chemical reduction transforms human remains into nutrition paste, blessed as the Emperor's final gift. Even death serves the Imperium's hunger through systematic biomass reclamation. Sacred hymns broadcast from concealed voxcasters, their timing synchronized to processing rhythms. The music masks screams while sanctifying the transformation. Some blue-tagged patients remain conscious during procedures, their terror considered purifying, their agony sanctifying. Anesthetic allocation follows efficiency calculations rather than compassion protocols. Waste not the Emperor's resources, even unto death, intones tech priest Zerath, as Valen's lobotomy concludes. The servitor that was once a frightened scribe stands motionless, awaiting commands. His personality has dissolved into compliance subroutines, his fears transformed into functional obedience. Processing continues through shift rotations and prayer bells. Servo skulls update manifests, while augur arrays scan for optimal resource extraction. Ward Omega operates with liturgical efficiency, transforming the broken into the useful, the afraid into the compliant, the dying into components for the Imperial war machine. The mathematics of mercy calculate maximum utility from minimum waste. Blue tags accumulate in disposal chutes, while their former bearers serve new purposes. Outside, families pray for any classification except blue. Inside, blue becomes blessing, final mercy that transforms suffering into service, waste into worship, death into devotion. Tomorrow, we examine the doctrine that sanctifies this systematic harvest. The Ministorum's Codex Dolorem rests open in the Medicae Chapel, its illuminated pages depicting martyrdom and surgery as indistinguishable sacraments. Confessor Drex reads to assembled hospitalers, "Suffering purifies the soul. Recovery without pain breeds corruption of faith." This theological framework transforms agony into absolution, establishing treatment protocols that sanctify torment as spiritual necessity. Anesthetic allocation operates as faith currency throughout the wards. Pain relief is rationed according to devotional compliance scores. Attendance at rites, accuracy in catechism recitation, denunciations offered during purity interviews. The most devout receive the least numbing. Proof requires pain, explains Hospitaller Superior Voss, while reviewing ampule cabinets secured by servo locks reading spiritual metrics. Tank Commander Thrace's perfect devotional record makes him ideal for blessed agony. The concept of graduated torment governs all treatment protocols. Procedures deliberately incorporate escalating pain to test spiritual purity. Thrace learns this doctrine at the fracture table as chirurgeons prepare to reset his shattered femur without anesthetic. Confessor Drex stands beside the surgical array, timing the procedure to liturgical beats. 1 prayer, 2 prayers, 3, he counts, as bone saws whine through tissue. Thrace's screams echo through the ward, not cries of agony, but devotional utterances proving unshakable faith. Servo skulls record pain thresholds for spiritual assessment, while auger arrays monitor neural activity for signs of transcendent suffering. His roars are filed as compliance data, each decibel measured against purity metrics. The commander will retain his yellow classification if he continues converting agony into gratitude. Physical therapy becomes penance ritual across the recovery wards. Patients relearning to walk must recite the catechism of sacred steps with each movement. Those rebuilding arm strength perform the litany of useful limbs while lifting blessed weights. Failure to maintain devotional cadence triggers supplemental purification. Additional exercises, testing spiritual resolve through systematic discomfort. Recovery tithes bind treatment to labor quotas, transforming gratitude from emotion into measurable output. Between therapy sessions, the wounded sort medical supplies, clean surgical instruments, and assist Ward Omega's processing operations. Productivity expectations scale with injury severity. Greater wounds demand greater debt to Imperial mercy. Thrace operates inventory cogitators with his functional arm, while surgical sites heal without analgesics. Complaints trigger immediate spiritual review. A manufacturing worker requesting pain relief finds his classification downgraded from green to blue, pending attitude adjustment. The moral framework operates with theological precision. Mercy without pain constitutes heretical indulgence. Comfort without cost breeds spiritual corruption. Suffering sanctifies, ease corrupts. The Codex Dolorum ensures every procedure serves dual purpose, physical restoration and spiritual fortification. Bodies mend while souls are reforged through systematic agony. Outside, work sirens call the recovered to new service. Inside, recovery tithes accumulate like prayers, preparing patients for their next phase of Imperial mercy. Tomorrow, gratitude leaves the wards and enters the streets. The convalescent work brigades are forming. The recovered are not released, they are retasked. Dawn sirens summon the wounded from Medici wards into convalescent work brigades, where recovery tithes transform into measurable labor quotas. Hive Gloriana Septimus offers abundant therapeutic exercise among its cult-scarred ruins, rubble to clear, munitions to sort, hazardous materials requiring disposal by expendable hands. Tank Commander Thrace reports to Brigade 7 with his arm secured in blessed slings, assigned a debris hauler whose devotional speaker broadcasts the litany of useful service above engine noise. By sweat we cleanse, by toil we serve, by labor we redeem. His service obligation, 96 hours calibrated to compound fractures and missing fingers, must be completed before classification review. Greater wounds demand greater gratitude to Imperial mercy. Work quotas operate with surgical precision. Manufactorum worker DOS, chemical burns still weeping through dermal grafts, owes 120 hours sorting corroded ordnance without protective equipment. Exposure builds immunity, explains Overseer Vex, while servo skulls monitor productivity metrics. The wounded handle unexploded munitions with trembling hands, their laser disguised as healing protocol. The Pennant's productivity index governs hope through competition. Brigades exceeding quotas by 5% earn protein rations, and warm recaf. 10% reduces service obligations by 1 day. Desperation breeds surveillance as patients count each other's loads, whisper accusations, and compose reports like prayers. Charts posted at work, shrines, rank names by output, golden halos marking the most productive sufferers. Failure invites supplemental therapy in reinforced chambers beneath the Medici complex. Neural probes seek signs of malingering, while interrogation techniques masquerade as medical intervention. Most emerge compliant, some emerge with blue tags. The manufactorum worker collapses mid-shift, toxic fumes aggravating his burns, but forces himself upright before supervisors record the incident. Medical complaints trigger immediate reclassification review. Servo skulls patrol constantly, projecting warnings onto workers' retinas. Productivity insufficient. Spiritual commitment questioned. Remediation required. Consistent underperformers face the redemption protocol. Final processing disguised as compassionate intervention. Across the work site, blue-tagged individuals are quietly escorted away, their faces blank with resignation. Thrace grips his hauler's controls, despite shooting pain through fractured bones, timing each movement to devotional verses. Around him, former scribes weep while sorting ammunition, their tears mixing with chemical residue from damaged ordnance. The brigades work beyond exhaustion to prove worthiness, gratitude measured in cubic meters moved, not emotions felt. Evening brings no rest, only transition to different assignments. The wounded serve until they heal, then serve until they break, then disappear into Ward Omega's processing tracks. Brigade efficiency reports determine collective fate. Entire units face reclassification based on aggregate performance. Tomorrow, Munitorum auditors arrive with clipboards and calculations. The system's sacred mathematics await verification. Audit day begins with incense and clipboards. Departamento Munitorum Legate Octavius arrives with a retinue of servo skulls, trailing data streams, and auto quills scratching calculations across sanctified parchment. The quarterly recovery efficiency assessment transforms the Medici complex into a tribunal where treatment costs face judgment against productivity outputs. Every throne gelt spent requires justification through sacred mathematics. Auspex scanners hum over patient files, while cogitator banks purr binary hymns of statistical verification. Legate Octavius moves through the wards with mechanical precision, his augmetic eye interfacing directly with efficiency readouts. Tank Commander Thrace's dossier displays concerning metrics, extensive surgical intervention, premium anesthetic allocation, prolonged recovery period. Treatment costs exceed projected output by 12%. A crimson notation appears. Investment variance requires supplemental review. Confessor Drex conducts mandatory gratitude evaluations throughout the complex, testing each patient's appreciation for Imperial benevolence. The wounded queue in corridors polished by decades of fear, reciting devotional responses while servo skulls quantify sincerity through vocal stress analysis. "Do you acknowledge the Emperor's boundless compassion?" Drex demands. Insufficient gratitude modifies efficiency ratings downward, pushing borderline classifications toward blue status. The Hive's efficiency rating hovers at 84.7%, tantalizingly close to the 85% threshold, triggering automatic tithe acceleration protocol. Success means 40% increased Imperial tribute within 60 days. Pressure builds through administrative chambers as clerks review marginal cases with nervous precision. Clark Thane processes quiet reclassifications, watching yellow tags fade to blue on patients whose recovery curves disappoint auditor expectations. Whispered conferences multiply in sealed chambers. "Borderlines depress aggregate output," murmurs an administrator. "Remove inefficient variables from denominator." Autoquills obligingly adjust classifications, while efficiency percentages climb through statistical manipulation rather than medical improvement. The mathematics demand optimization regardless of human cost. By midday, efficiency reaches 84.9%. Ward Omega's custodians wheel additional gurneys through service corridors, while tech priests calibrate processing equipment for maximum throughput operations. Thane overhears the critical conversation between Legate Octavius and Confessor Drex. Threshold remains elusive. Initiate redemption protocol before audit conclusion. Clear inefficient inventory. Statistical purity requires systematic optimization. Thrace notices his file flagged during evening inspection. The commander, who screamed prayers during unanesthetized surgery, who exceeded work quotas despite shattered bones, whose devotion never wavered. Even perfect compliance cannot overcome investment mathematics when treatment costs exceed projected utility. His remaining service potential fails to justify continued resource allocation. Servo skulls broadcast updates through voxcasters. Current efficiency, 84.9%. Protocol redemption authorization pending. Prepare for systematic inventory adjustment. The audit nears completion, while Ward Omega prepares for unprecedented activation. Red wax seals appear on cogitator housings stamped "Protocol Redemption Imminent." Tomorrow brings the Great Cleansing, mass processing to achieve statistical perfection through systematic harvest of the inefficient. The Emperor's mercy operates through sacred mathematics, and the numbers demand balance. Klaxon sirens pierce the Medici complex at dawn, their wailing harmonized with sacred chimes, announcing Protocol Redemption activation. Blast doors slam throughout Hive Gloriana Septimus as Arbites squads seal exits with blessed ceramite barriers. Servo skulls swarm corridors, recording arrays capturing final biometric data. The Great Cleansing transforms recovery into systematic harvest. Tech Priest Dominus Xerath coordinates from his elevated command throne, mechadendrites interfacing with processing cogitators. Ward Omega's triple tracks accelerate to maximum capacity, while sacred hymns broadcast from concealed voxcasters, their liturgical cadence timing bone saws and neural extraction drills. Track Primaris handles organ reclamation, hearts for Astartes apothecarians, neural tissue for cogitator banks. Track Secundus processes servitor conversions through systematic lobotomization. Track Tertius feeds corpse starch processors with unsuitable remains. Tank Commander Thrace struggles against restraints as orderlies wheel him toward processing. I served faithfully. I exceeded quotas. His protests dissolve into mechanical chanting as tech adepts bless extraction equipment. Servo skulls update his file. Organs viable. Genetic markers acceptable. Spiritual compliance irrelevant. The mathematics demand optimization, regardless of devotion. Manufactorum worker DOS presents himself voluntarily at Track Secundus. Chemical burns weeping through dermal grafts. Let me serve the Emperor eternally, he whispers, while neural interface arrays descend. His lobotomization proceeds with liturgical precision as consciousness fragments into compliance protocols. The man who feared blue classification embraces mechanical salvation over biological termination. Chirurgeon Malthius performs duties with tears streaming beneath his surgical mask, hands steady despite moral collapse. Around him, junior medics weep openly while harvesting organs from patients who trusted Imperial mercy. Each incision follows blessed technique while souls wither through systematic participation in sanctified atrocity. Confessor Drex delivers the benediction of final utility from Ward Omega's altar. In death, service eternal. In harvest, purpose fulfilled. In processing, the Emperor's will manifest. Incense burners release blessed smoke, clouding the transformation of consciousness into compliance, flesh into function, hope into horror. Processing continues through shift rotations. New servitors march from conversion chambers with vacant eyes and mechanical obedience, personalities dissolved into functional utility. Transport convoys queue at loading docks, blessed cargo destined for corpse starch facilities across the sector. By evening, statistical perfection emerges. Legate Octavius announces sacred numbers. Recovery efficiency, 87%. Tithe acceleration protocol activated. Imperial tribute increased 40% effective immediately. The mathematics celebrate through systematic optimization of human resources. Ward Omega's tracks slow as inventory depletes. The great cleansing concludes with liturgical precision. Inefficiency purged, statistics sanctified, mercy redefined through mathematical purity. Tomorrow, new patients will receive color-coded tags in wards, sanitized by systematic harvest. Silence settles over the medici wards, like blessed shrouds. The antiseptic air carries traces of incense and metal. Ward Omega's blast doors sealed and sanctified for routine operations. Surviving patients speak in whispers that mimic prayer, their gratitude now edged with survivors' terror. Eyes track servo skulls with learned wariness, while conversations halt at certain words. Blue, processing, efficiency. New casualties arrive through intake bays, receiving the same color-coded tags from chirurgeons, whose hands maintain steady precision. Red, yellow, green. The familiar spectrum of Imperial triage. Fresh wounded remain ignorant of blue's true meaning, trusting medici mercy, while older patients avert their gazes with practiced reflex. The twist crystallizes with bureaucratic clarity. Imperial recovery was never healing. It is resource extraction and population control disguised as compassion. The system recovers useful components, organs for Astartes apothecarians, neural tissue for cogitator banks, biomass for corpse starch processors, while disposing of inefficient elements through systematic harvest. Recovery efficiency quotients measure extraction rates, not restoration success. This machinery operates across thousands of worlds with liturgical consistency. Hive Mortis Alpha reports 89% efficiency through expanded servitor conversion. Forge World Metallica exceeds neural tissue quotas by 15%. Each contributes to the Imperium's vast consumption apparatus, transforming populations into resources through blessed mathematics. Probationer Hester assumes Clark Thane's cogitator terminal, processing updated statistics with devotional precision. Post-redemption efficiency, 87%. Tithe acceleration confirmed. Resource optimization achieved. Her mentor nods approvingly. Precision is piety. Do not personalize the sums. Numbers bloom across sanctified screens, clean metrics concealing systematic cannibalism. Tank Commander Thrace's bunk remains parade perfect, nameplate already reassigned. Manufactorum worker DOS shuffles past as Servitor DV-77, rivet gun grafted where hands once prayed, consciousness dissolved into mechanical compliance. Their fates demonstrate the system's elegant efficiency. Nothing wasted, everything utilized. Confessor Drex recruits new Hospitaller novices from among the faithful, leading them through Ward Omega's empty processing chambers. True mercy requires hard choices, he explains, while sacred machinery gleams under lumens. The Emperor's compassion serves the Imperium's needs, not individual comfort. Faith demands necessary cruelty. Young faces absorb the lesson with innocent understanding. The institutional perpetuation continues through theological framework and administrative momentum. Each harvest generates resources for expanded operations while training new servants in systematic horror disguised as divine service. Mercy becomes mathematics. Compassion transforms into consumption algorithms. Transport convoys depart in orderly procession. Organ crates bearing purity seals. Nutrient tanks destined for hive populations. Servitor cohorts marching to Manufactoria with perfect synchronization. The harvest disperses across the sector while fresh casualties queue at intake stations. Tomorrow brings new patients, new classifications, new opportunities for sacred efficiency. The machinery of mercy operates with liturgical precision, consuming its own population while maintaining the illusion of care through blessed bureaucracy. The redemption protocol is not a medical event, it is a logistics cycle. Sacred cargo departs Hive Gloriana Septimus through blessed transport networks, transforming processed citizens into imperial resources distributed across the galaxy. Each harvested component serves the Imperium's vast consumption apparatus with liturgical precision. Cryogenic organ crates bear priority routing to Astartes chapter apothecarians throughout the sector, hearts destined for gene seed implantation, neural tissue for psycho-conditioning protocols, genetic samples for recruitment purity screening. The Crimson Fist's requisition manifest lists 17 cardiac units and 43 genetic specimens, all sourced from Gloriana Septimus efficiency operations. Barcoded organs tagged with donor virtue scores feed transhuman enhancement, while mortal suffering enables immortal warfare. Processed biomass becomes corpse starch paste, distributed through hive populations as the Emperor's final gift. Citizens consume their processed neighbors unknowingly, blessed nutrition derived from systematic recycling. The loop closes without confession. Families eat the yield of their own losses while productivity climbs 3% sector-wide. Servitor DV-77, once Manufactorum worker DOS, now rivets hull plates in macro dock facilities with tireless precision. His cohort fills labor shortages across 17 worlds, lobotomized compliance replacing wage requirements. Consciousness dissolved into mechanical obedience serves imperial efficiency without protest or fatigue. The 87% recovery efficiency generates increased tithes that fund expanded medici facilities on neighboring worlds. Administratum architects design new ward omegas, while tech priests calibrate processing equipment for optimal throughput. The system metastasizes through its own success, each harvest funding expanded harvesting capacity. Actuarial cogitators calculate acceptable attrition rates for every imperial world. Hive worlds sustain 12% annual processing without triggering unrest. Agri-worlds manage 8% through careful seasonal timing. Death worlds achieve 15% due to existing mortality expectations. Mathematical models balance population consumption against rebellion thresholds, ensuring sustainable harvest without compromising planetary stability. Cardinal Administratum Vos sanctifies the apparatus through theological framework. Those processed achieve ultimate service to the Emperor, their sacrifice enabling continued imperial glory. The ecclesiarchy transforms systematic murder into spiritual transcendence, processing into devotional virtue. Families find comfort in sanctified lies, while their loved ones become components. Economic reality crystallizes through blessed accounting. The Imperium's medical system sustains itself by consuming its patient base. Clinics depend on organ sales to fund augmetics. Augmetic factories require servitors to meet quotas. Servitor foundries need skulls to maintain production. The mathematics breed their own fuel through systematic cannibalism, disguised as compassionate care. Shipping Manifest. Omega Prime reveals the system's ultimate scope, gilt-bordered documentation, bearing Terra routing codes, neural tissue consignments bound for Sol system, secondary destination, Adeptus Terra quarantine facilities. The harvest reaches the Imperium's heart, feeding the Golden Throne's machinery through systematic population consumption. Tomorrow, we examine those who begin questioning this sacred mathematics. In such machinery, compassion reads as inefficiency. The machine notices everything. Chirurgeon Secundus Aelia Cord scrubs her hands until the water runs pink, then clear. 3 redemption protocols have passed through her surgical theatre, leaving sleep fractured by phantom screams and the memory of conscious patients processed while hymns masked their terror. On bed 23, a manufactorum worker with chemical burns shakes in fevered agony. His chart permits analgesic only after quota completion. Aelia palms a micro-ampoule from her sleeve and drips unauthorized relief beneath bandages. The man exhales like prayer. Above, a servo-skull's lens dilates. Red rune blinks, therapeutic deviation logged. Her acts of mercy accumulate like evidence. Falsified efficiency reports where she adjusts pain tolerance metrics. Classification delays for borderline blue cases. Extra anesthetic during bone-setting procedures. Each compassionate choice feeds surveillance algorithms calibrated to detect therapeutic deviance. The machines notice empathy like infection. Detection arrives with morning prayer bells. Arbites seal ward exits, while Interrogator Vex of the Ordo Hereticus enters bearing the rosette and accusations. "Compassionate heresy," he announces, voice cutting through antiseptic air. The dangerous notion that healing should prioritize patient welfare over imperial efficiency. Her surgical logs display damning evidence. unauthorized mercy measured in microdoses and falsified reports. The investigation unfolds with liturgical precision. Servo skulls project holographic evidence, while psychic probes scan for ideological corruption. Minor kindnesses become major charges, providing pain relief to blue-tagged patients, questioning Ward Omega protocols, extending recovery periods beyond algorithmic recommendations. You believe suffering unnecessary, Vex states, while Auspec's needles taste truth in trembling air. Chirurgeon Prime Maltheus, her mentor, requests private audience in the chapel, where Codex Dolorum lies open to martyr plates. His eyes carry the exhaustion of years serving sacred mathematics. The system isn't broken, Aelia, he explains with careful precision. It works exactly as designed. We are resource managers, not healers. Patients are inventory awaiting allocation. Compassion is inefficiency. Mercy is wasteful. Healing serves harvest, not hope. The choice crystallizes on parchment rimmed in red wax. Sign confession and submit to attitude correction protocols, or accept blue classification for processing. She stares at the line reserved for her name, while remembering the Manufactorum worker's grateful whisper. Her hands still smell of antiseptic and contraband mercy. Compassion is a blade, Interrogator Vex observes without impatience. You may wield it under instruction, or turn it upon the Imperium itself. Aelia signs. The servo skull seals new scheduling to her sleeve. Scholar Medicae Efficiency Module, Sacred Resource Management, Therapeutic Cruelty, Oaths of Useful Harvest. A corridor opens toward lecture halls lit like operating theaters. Behind her, Ward Omega hums with processing rhythms. Ahead, instructors prepare to transform doubt into doctrine. Tomorrow, re-education begins. The machinery of mercy consumes its own servants when they remember their humanity. The Scholar Medicae receives novices with traditional healing concepts, anatomy through blessed cadavers, wound care from ancient texts, the sacred duty to preserve imperial life. First-year students recite classical oaths with devotional fervor, their faces bright with noble purpose. Then, Module 3 introduces practical necessities and resource realities. The curriculum turns like a scalpel, excising sentimentality from the healer's art. Instructor Maltheus guides 27 recruits through the Resource Reality Laboratory, where efficiency metrics replace compassion protocols. Sacred mathematics demand optimization, he explains, while cogitators display sector-wide casualty projections. Students learn to calculate treatment costs against productivity outputs, transforming suffering into manageable equations. The Medici oath evolves. I pledge my skill to the Emperor's service, my judgment his sacred calculation. Advanced courses bloom with iron precision. Efficient compassion teaches anesthetic rationing according to devotional compliance scores. Sacred resource management marries pathophysiology to cost ledgers, converting hemorrhage into expenditure units. Therapeutic necessity and sacred cruelty demonstrates proper blue tag processing, while students observe through reinforced glass, their vital signs monitored by surveillance servo skulls. Chirurgeon Secundus Aelia Cord, attitude properly adjusted through re-education protocols, now instructs Ward Omega practicum sessions. Her voice carries clinical detachment as she demonstrates organ extraction techniques while reciting the litany of useful harvest. Individual compassion serves individual corruption, she explains to attentive faces. Systematic efficiency serves the Emperor's greater mercy. Her transformation from questioning healer to compliant instructor exemplifies the curriculum's success. Student selection operates through careful surveillance. Servo skulls monitor emotional responses during processing simulations. Excessive empathy triggers counseling sessions with Confessor Drex. Persistent cases face transfer to sanitation duties or corpse starch processing, their soft hearts deemed unsuitable for Imperial medicine. Those who adapt receive advanced certification in extraction protocols and servitor conversion techniques. Desensitization arrives through repetition. The first incision shakes novice hands, the fifth steadies, the 50th becomes timing, synchronized to hymnal cadence. Students learn to record screams as metrics, to treat consciousness during processing as data points for spiritual assessment. Economics completes the catechism. Harvested organs fund augmetic factories. Servitor output sustains clinics. Clinics expand ward omega capacity. Graduation convenes beneath lumen arches in the Medici Chapel, where Codex Dolorum lies open to martyrdom plates. 27 students raise blessed scalpels, while oil anoints their palms. Confessor Drex leads the final rite as servo skulls record each oath for compliance verification. Together they recite the oath of sacred harvest. I pledge to serve the Emperor's greater mercy through necessary cruelty. My hands are his instruments of harvest, my judgment his sacred calculation. In efficiency, I find purpose. In processing, I find peace. In systematic mercy, I find the Emperor's will. Assignment orders await distribution. New chirurgeons destined for expanding Medici facilities across the sector, carrying blessed techniques to fresh populations. The education perpetuates, transforming healers into harvesters through liturgical precision. Tomorrow, Aelia will train another class. The cycle continues, mercy redefined through sacred mathematics, healing transformed into harvest. The antiseptic ash burns as Chirurgeon Secundus Aelia Cord's stylus traces the imperial aquila across another guardsman's forehead. Each stroke deliberate, each line a signature on an inventory ledger. Trooper Vex lies strapped to the same gurney where his predecessor once received classification processing, the cycle perpetuating with liturgical precision. The ash mixture, blessed oils and ground bone meal from previous patients, seeps into flesh like a brand of ownership. This is Hive Gloriana Septimus, 147 days after the last redemption protocol. New casualties fill sanitized beds, while Ward Omega hums with processing rhythms. Recovery continues unchanged, patients sorted, classified, harvested according to sacred mathematics that transform suffering into imperial resources. The wheel turns with mechanical inevitability. Color-coded tags flutter from beds like prayer flags, marking identical fates. Red clusters around shock beds for the irreplaceable. Yellow indicates delayed treatment for the valuable. Green patients receive basic care sufficient for labor return. Blue tags accumulate in disposal chutes, while their former bearers serve new purposes through systematic harvest. The mathematics never change, the classifications never cease. The camera pulls back to reveal the greater horror. Every citizen of the Imperium exists as an eternal patient in the system's care. Never truly healed, always requiring treatment that serves Imperial needs rather than human welfare. From birth registration to death processing, each life cycles through Medici machinery, designed for extraction rather than restoration. Preoperative, midoperative, postoperative, but never discharged, never cured. The final revelation crystallizes through systematic understanding. The Imperium itself is the patient, a dying organism sustaining itself by consuming its own population. A moribund colossus sprawled across star systems, fed by tribute lines, ventilated by manufactoria, its circulation maintained through administratum calculations. Recovery becomes impossible because the system requires perpetual suffering to function. Healing threatens efficiency. Wellness disrupts harvest. Genuine mercy corrupts the mathematics of survival. Across the galaxy, thousands of worlds operate identical protocols. Each hive contributes to the vast consumption apparatus, transforming citizens into components through blessed bureaucracy. The immune system is the Arbites, the nervous system is surveillance servo-skulls, the digestive tract processes populations into useful resources. Nothing is wasted. Everything is consumed. Transport convoys queue at loading docks while fresh casualties arrive through intake bays. The harvest disperses as new wounds require classification. Chirurgeon Cord moves with practiced efficiency. Her transformation from questioning healer to compliant harvester, complete through systematic education. The documentary closes with the litany of perpetual service, echoing through antiseptic corridors. In the Emperor's mercy, we find purpose. In his harvest, we find peace. In his efficiency, we find eternity. Trooper Vex's eyes flutter open as anesthetic fades, the Aquila throbbing with each heartbeat. His gaze searches the chirurgeon's face for hints of classification, finding only clinical detachment inherited through institutional conditioning. "Emperor," he whispers through cracked lips, voice barely audible above the ward's mechanical hymns. "Let me be useful." The wheel turns. The harvest continues. The mercy never ends.